Elementallis is a top-down action-adventure game developed by Anke Games and published by Top Hat Studios. It is a classic Zelda-like, seemingly inspired by the Game Boy era. Instead of gadgets and weapons, the hero collects and utilises the elements of the world: fire, nature, ice, water, earth, wind, and electricity. This approach places a heavy emphasis on magic as a resource, but the question remains whether it adds any true magic to the experience. The elements are central to the world and the narrative. As is common in stories revolving around elemental forces, they form the fundamental nature of existence. Disrupting them causes natural disasters in various forms. This is the state of the world at the start of Elementallis, and it is entirely the fault of the hero's parents. The opening parts of the game focus on setting the scene and explaining how the world reached this point. The protagonist's parents experimented with the elements for unknown reasons, disrupting the natural flow and making life difficult for everyone. Raised by a former teacher from the Elementallis Academy, the hero is on a journey of guilt. They must try to fix the world their parents broke, while seeing the damage caused by those actions firsthand. It is an interesting premise, though I wish the execution were stronger. The game is heavily front-loaded with exposition. Any further context is tucked away in side content, such as diary entries or shared through vague dialogue like, "Why did we let those elementals into the temple?" The story would have been better served if the parents' actions were revealed gradually in each area. This would have made the local narratives much more engaging. Each of the 8 areas is based entirely on one element, and follows a similar structure. Every region is in disarray due to the events of 10 years prior. The lava has stopped flowing, the forest is dying, and the ocean storms are raging. After meeting the locals, the hero journeys to the elemental temple, defeats the monsters within, and restores the element to fix the world. The game offers some intriguing story beats, such as how locals view the now vanished elementals. In one instance, the player must consider whether fixing an area might actually make life harder for those living there. However, these themes remain surface level. A significant part of this problem is the lack of memorable side characters. Most areas have at least one named ally, but they often share sprites with nameless NPCs. This makes it difficult to feel attached to each location. Without that connection, the player's action feels less impactful. I believe the decision to have a town in every area rather than a central hub with a more developed cast contributes to this feeling. The closest inspirations for Elementallis are the Game Boy Zelda titles, Link's Awakening, Oracle of Seasons, and Oracle of Ages. In all 3, there is a central hub that players return to frequently. A central town allows NPCs to feel more important, and lets the player see tangible progression as the town evolves throughout the adventure. In Elementallis, each area feels secluded. Beyond returning for secrets or visiting the upgrade parlours on the mountains, there is very little reason to interact with an area once the temple is cleared. Returning is not always simple either, as the warp stones used for fast travel are not always in the most convenient places. While the 8 main areas are unique in theme and aesthetic, they are not particularly memorable beyond their basic tropes. At the very least, clearing a temple results in visible changes to the land. The forest looks greener and the beach appears calmer once the storms have subsided, which provides a nice sense of accomplishment. The hero functions exactly as one would expect from a classic Zelda-like. You slay enemies with a sword and defend with a shield. While some puzzles and enemies test your combat skills, the experience can eventually devolve into a numbers game. I found I could cheese many encounters by repeatedly freezing enemies and hit them before they could break free. Nevertheless, the enemies introduced in the early stages make good use of the hero's expanding elemental powers. The powers themselves are adequate. Elements are the main gimmick of Elementallis, yet in practice they are often just repackaged versions of traditional tools. This does not make them bad, but it does make them feel quite standard. I do like that each element has both an attack and a traversal mechanic tied to it. The fireball serves as a ranged attack and a way to light torches. The nature element allows vines to grow on soft soil for climbing, but it can also create an area of effect attack that leeches health from enemies. This multifunctional design elevates the elements slightly, though I still wish there was more depth to them given they are the focal point of the game. Mechanically, the game is solid. I appreciate the sense of freedom it provides, even if the path is technically linear. I even wondered at one point if I had sequence broken the game, which was enjoyable. However, I did get soft-locked in one dungeon, which was frustrating. The dungeons are excellent showcases for logic puzzles and offer unique combat challenges. Unfortunately, some layouts are tedious, forcing the player to backtrack from one end to the other, only to return again. The Wind Temple is particularly guilty of this. The bosses vary in difficulty. Some are incredibly easy, while others are surprisingly punishing. One boss featured a mechanic that felt like a bullet hell game, which was an unexpected shift in the difficulty. Most are well designed though, and visually reference objects associated with their specific element, which is a nice touch. Elementallis is a fun game that will satisfy anyone looking for a classic Zelda-style experience. However, it rarely does anything truly special. Its core mechanic is a slightly enhanced version of the standard item system. The story is darker than usual, but remains surface level, and the sidecast fail to stand out. While combat is occasionally tactical, it often just relies on hitting harder than your opponent. Elementallis plays it by the book, taking small steps towards innovation without ever taking the full plunge. As always, we want to thank our patrons. The $5 plus tier are appearing on screen right now. If you want to know how you can join them, please check the description down below. Please help us survive this YouTube landscape by liking and commenting down below. Engagement really is the best way to push content up nowadays. And always make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, so that you always remember to return to the source.